I am here today. Welcome back into South Bay Sports Radio. I'm here today with one of the pillars of San Pedro basketball, Coach John Bobich. He's been at Mary Star. He's been at Pacific Hills. 25 years at San Pedro High School, shaping students beyond the court. This is a conversation where we are talking about not winning, about stats, about wins and losses, but his legacy. Coach, thank you very much for your time
Thanks, Nick.
today.
This is an awesome show. I've been watching you. It's fun to watch and it's fun to get a blessing to have you step up and do something that we need in South Bay.
Thank you very much, Coach. Let's go into why you chose to become a coach.
I was always into sports growing up. Parents had me involved with sports. So I had a love for sports. My first coaching job, McDonovich Park, the Knicks team went 1-9. I was 16 years old. But the one game we won, I was at a wedding, so I missed it. So I still had fun. So at 16, I enjoyed working with kids, even though I was a kid myself. From there, I helped out at my local high school as an assistant frost-off coach and going to college. I was not sure what I wanted to do in life. I was a part-time longshoreman. I had all these different jobs, and it always came back to sports. And then, like I said, I have this something inside me to like to help people. And when you see that spark go off in a kid as a teacher, but right now I'm as a dean, so I'm working with a lot of kids. The spark when they succeed is just what makes me go. At 20, I found out, hey, let's get this schooling in, and I followed up the school. I wasn't considered the best student athlete. It kind of was a challenge for me to get my grades up because I was always distracted with sports. I thank my mom to this day because when I graduated from high school, she stood in line with me at Harvard College and she made sure she goes, "You're going to stay in your education until you figure out what you want to do." So thanks, mom. And she ended up, like I said, just by her example, hardworking mom and dad, and they got me through school because what happened was I found out this is the difference degrees you need. I have my master's, my bachelor's, and all that. And it was because of parents and the coaches I had that taught me to strive, through challenges, which as a 5'9" guard, I played junior college, but that was a challenge in itself because you get on the court. And when I remember trying out at Harvard College and then going to the gym for the tryouts, and they said, it was a class. They said, "Hey, we have enough here. Go. The girls need some extra." So I'd be practicing with the girls in the class. And the kind of cool part was the coaches came and observed, and I was the only guy out of that class to make the team. So it was kind of, that's the challenges. So as challenges happen, when we see these kids these days, there's usually an answer that we could help them and guide them to something successful. So the most rewarding part of the job is when the kids come back and, you know, thank you. And it's not about the basketball part. It's usually, hey, I have a great family now and I have this, living on my own. So that's really successful. And again, it's not just the athletes, but as a dean, you're always working with kids who are going through some personal challenges that we help them through.
You went to Mary Star, Catholic upbringing, played basketball and baseball. What are some of your earliest memories of growing up in San Pedro and playing two sports?
When you see my earliest memory, I played at the Boys and Girls Club. And my dad's like, "Hey, go try out here. You're probably not going to make the team." That's one of the tough dads. And so I really made the team. And one of my first baskets, I was all excited because I had never really played basketball before. Ball was tipped to me. I went down, made a layup, and I was all excited. And I realized I made it in the wrong basket. So that was my humble beginning. As life went on, it was my peer group at school at Mary Star. I have 15 of us that went from first to 12th grade. And even yesterday, we have group text once. That group of friends, we got into sports. And we had Des Walker, who was our P coach, who, you know, we were in eighth grade football. He had a playbook in eighth grade CYO football with special teams, chalk talks. We have the best uniform. So he made it feel important. So Des Walker, along with Rick Bruce, was the other coach who made it feel like this is important. And we get excited about that. And that was pride. And those two gentlemen, like, were my coaches in middle school. And to this day, Rick Bruce still comes around games and he's a super supporter. And then Gennaro DeMoss says I went to high school. He was my eighth grade basketball coach and my high school coach. And then he was the assistant at Harvard College. So I still stay in touch with coaches because I still have, I need advice sometimes on situations. So I have that core group. And that's what really motivated me, guided me to move up as a coach.
There's a book that I'm reading. I do a lot of picking books up, putting books down, but this one, I kind of drew drew me in. It's called The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. And one of the things that I just read was people that learn, they start early and they don't finish. And you look like one of those to me. Not only look, but you sound like one of those to me. So that's something that I just wanted to point out. Let's go into Saturday first before I get off topic. So Palisades tomorrow, they're the top seed. What's been the biggest thing as far as this run that your team's been on that stood out to you from, like we talked about earlier, being hold to the lowest total points scored against Narbonne in your last regular season game, and then one of the toughest tests in Washington to start your playoff run?
Well, we found in every game this year that we lost, I think we're 23-6, but every game we lost was a greater learning experience than a lot of games we won because we weren't doing certain things right at the end quarters or execution on defense. It was the game it came down to the final game of the season against Narbonne, and we kind of were familiar with each other. So our defense definitely stepped up, but our offense was off. And we ended up obviously winning the championship, but the next day of practice, I said, "How do you guys feel?" "Good." And they weren't satisfied. So their story wasn't done and they didn't feel good about that. Mainly because 39 points or whatever we scored is by far lowest when we get close to 70. So they weren't happy with that. And that turned into a positive because then when we went to play Narbonne, they were paying attention to the details. So like if you're winning the game and you're discussing, hey, you need to be a step over and help on say defense. Hey, coach, we won. What's the difference? But when they lose by a point, which we've had our share this year, they understand the difference. So going into the Palisades game, it's a number one team for a reason. I believe they have 4'6" guys, 6'11" guy. On paper, I'm sure they're supposed to beat us by 25. They brought in some really good players, so we're going to be challenged. But at the same time, our players aren't, they're every single one of them are from San Pedro, and they've gone to believe in each other. So they have this police system. And it's like I said, it's Washington. At Washington was a big win because hostile environment, a lot of talking going on, and they stayed poised and believed in each other. And that's part of the keys. They trust each other. So, and they seem to trust the coaches. And we have an incredible coaching staff. Anthony Rogosic used to be one of the players for us and helped us win a title back in 2010. He's on staff here as the athletic director. Ryan Hussein and Nick Newton are big man coaches. So when we go to practice, like I said, the kids are getting developed, which is that's makes you really proud because we talk about, like Chris, who was on the Frost Out BT 2 years ago, for him to go from that to, having incredible games this year and, monster dunks and all this stuff where he couldn't even dribble or dunk, even a year and a half ago. So the coaches we have here, I'm so thankful for. And that makes, coming to practice every day is exciting. And then our players, we get up at they get not up at 6:15, they're at practice at 6:15 and they all are showing up. They just bring that energy. It makes you feel young and energetic and people go, "Hey, how do you do this so long?" I said, we have a certain level that a player has to do to play in San Pedro High School. And it's not just the athletic part because we've had several players that don't make it because maybe they're caught up with the wrong group or not getting their grades up. But the kids that we have are unselfish. They love each other, and it's exciting just to come to practice. And some years we win, and sometimes we don't win. But at the end of the day, we feel we're making a difference in the future of their lives.
Making a difference has been something that you would talk to me about. Making a difference in the community is something that you hold true because it's not about what happens on the court, but the memories, these core memories that you're providing for these kids off the court. How did the whole giving back to the community first start with you?
That's a great question. So at San Pedro, we do outreach in many ways. It could be anywhere from visiting the elementary schools, and we'll do an assembly where the basketball players are talking, and it could be anti-bullying. It could be working hard because a lot of times younger kids who are really good in athletics don't understand the importance of getting your education. And sometimes they've been taught, "Hey, I'm the best athlete, so I could get special privileges," and it's not really that way. So we go and reach out to the schools and during the holidays when there's needy families, one of the most rewarding things we do is we find a way to reach out to families. There's been times when the family can't afford gifts, so we become Santa Claus. So that's happened more than once, and our kids will go down there. We had a situation where a family met with me because I'm in the dean's office and working, and the family told me, "Mr. Bobich, we finally moved out of the shelter and we're living in the one bedroom apartment." So I brought the whole program together, the basketball program at half court, and said, "A family needs us." And I said, "They just moved into an apartment with 5 people, and they don't have a bed, they don't have any dishes, they don't have pillows, they don't have forks." And the kids got together, and one of the kids he had a truck, and he went from kinda garage to garage with the players in the program and furnished that house within 48 hours. And then I went back a couple days later because I had an extra pot or pan or something to give the parent, and I noticed a TV on the wall. And then, I said, "You have a TV on the wall?" She goes, "Yeah, George Reiser. He's the one who had the truck." He went home and he got his own TV and installed it for us and show us how to get on this TVs. You can see that the kids are really touched by that because they see they're making a difference, like a life difference in these people because the smiles on those kids' faces when we bring them presents, um, is huge. And then sometimes there might be in the local, hospitals, somebody's terminally ill, and we've had kids go and visit, and then the smiles on those people's faces, and years after the relative has passed, the relatives come to us and share, like, how much that meant to them. So we literally are gaining when we were able to help. Why do we do that? I don't know, just like my mom actually used to cook for everybody in the neighborhood if they got sick, if somebody was sick, she'd be cooking or they need so. I mean, she's turned 91 this week, and she still is aware of her neighbors. So I guess by positive role models in my life and the adults in my life, they kind of taught me like that other people come first. And Gennaro Damaso, my high school coach, taught me. I mean, just he didn't say it, but anytime you would come around him, it was all about me. Like, hey, how's it going here? So I learned, because you could be selfish and talk about, hey, I scored this many points, and he taught me that. So I'm getting better because here at San Pedro, every single student has a story. And if we get to know their story, we have amazing kids here. I mean, I love what I do here. It's just amazing adults here, teachers, administration, people that have got, "Why do you love your job so much?" I go, "Walk with me." And then when they walk with me, we're walking around, the kids are all chatting it up. And I remember one parent said, as they're walking the campus with me, they go, "Where's the bad kids?" Because everybody was being so kind. Because when we walk into classes as deans and our staff, because we have great staff here, it was called the Parents or the Pirate Support Center. It's all about kindness, right? And maybe someone's having an off day and they're rude or disrespectful. I always tell them we'll still be kind to you. So it spreads. So like I said, when you walk on a campus, it's amazing the relationships we deal with the young people. And like I said, the staff gets them. Our job is to identify their goals and help them to get there. So it's exciting to keep working hard. This is my 25th year as a D. So like I said, nothing but positives here.
A lot of that golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. This team, like you said, 23-6, open division semifinals, and every player has been at San Pedro since their freshman year. Why is that something you're especially proud of?
I'm really proud of that because when they first made the open division, I mean, behind the scenes, the coaches were saying like, "Hey, that division's for the players who have transfers, and they're going to be a higher level." And that's how it appeared. So the teams that were getting there, we were in that open division team because we were playing with the players in our town. So this year to be even in the same breath as some of the big schools and to be in the Final Four with the players that have every single one of them been here since their freshman year. That means our coaching staff, our lower level frost off. Mike Moore's, I think, been in his third year as a JV coach. Keith Vaughn have won the league at the lower levels. And the bigger thing is they developed the kids and they taught them the discipline because a lot of times we found out that, the better so-called better players not disciplined in the lower levels, the coaches would play them and not discipline them. And so that hurts them. So we're fortunate to have a program where they're taking care of the kids at the younger level. So as they develop and come on up, there's a continuity going. So we don't have to reteach discipline, which sounds, how do you reteach discipline? Yeah, the kid's used to getting do whatever he wants and not doing his work and getting a 2.0 just because, then he's usually not ready for varsity. Our core coaches have done an outstanding job, and no doubt the parents are involved, and when they're involved in the kids' work and their lives, odds of success go way, way up.
How hard is it these days to instill discipline, especially when things have become so against how you and I were raised?
Right, you're exactly right. Things have definitely changed. Um, it's what I'm finding out is if you develop that relationship, and there's different ways, you really have to listen to the kids more, right? So when you listen to the kids more and you have that relationship with them, they know they're being empowered. We don't have to do anything but just ask, ask, hey, how did your game go? We don't want the parent that's counting on their kid. How's your grades? They know how their grades are. Let them do this. And then one of the biggest things that I'm really excited about at our school, we have what's called a peer-to-peer counseling. So we train kids to become counselors. And then the ones who used to have these challenges academically or personal challenges, as they're juniors and seniors, they become the counselors and guide the younger kids. So we have a whole different dynamic than 10, 15 years ago, with, the tensions and all that. So we try to work on what the story is and why, and then we feel we have all the tools here at school to work with the kid, and we have administrators. If we have to go to someone's house to talk because the parent's too busy. So because you get that, role modeling from the parent is so important. So we try to talk to the parent, and parents will come in and say, I need your help. And then they're asking for guidance. So that's a positive thing, and then some parents, I call it too busy. And I said, we can't be too busy for your own kids. So like I said, that's when the house visits come in. So we try to get rid of all the excuses. And then at the end of the day, they appreciate it because they'll come back. Yeah, it's exciting. I was at Tech Park recently because I still play pickup basketball, and the guy saw me and he was like, "I never thought I'd see you again." And he said, "You know what? You believed in me, all right." And he was a kid who so-called used to make mistakes. And he said, "I just graduated from JC. I got accepted from USC medical school, and I'm going to be a doctor and a pastor." So we get those rewarding experience because if you just judge the young man on what he was doing in ninth grade, I mean, me and you both know, like, we're not the best students sometimes, but, if we pay attention and we have somebody guiding us, like I wouldn't have never got to certain places in life without some guidance from an adult that made a big difference in life.
At, I work at Trader Joe's as well. That's my insurance job, if you will. And
On Western?
no, no, not on Western. I'm in Redondo Beach. I'm on the other side of the hill. But there's a young man who came in recently. He was looking for some products, and like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. He went to Palos Verdes, and I saw him one time. I said, "Hey, are you playing in college?" He goes, "No, no." I said, "You got a shot. Don't give up. I really like watching you play." And he took that and he ran with it, and he was at Occidental. Norm Chow called him the Division III Aaron Rodgers. He wound up playing in Canada. He wound up playing for the USFL, and he continued. And he came back and he said, "Hey, man, I really want to thank you for believing in me." And I kind of like I was joking with him. I was like, "Well, what if I was bullshitting you?" He goes, "Well, were you?" I said, "Does it matter now? Even if I was, what you took that belief, then however long ago it
Right.
was, 12 years ago, you took that and you ran with it and you used that." He's like, "Hey, I really want to thank you for believing in me." Of course, because I know what it's like to have people that believe in you, and I know what it's like to have people that don't, because I've had my experiences. And that's the biggest thing for me is I see kids that, they want to play. My kids, the same thing. It's like, I want to do this, I want to do that. All right, cool. Let's take care of it. But at the same time, there's other factors that work into this. You have to make sure that you take care of what needs to be taken care of most. And while different factors add up, at the same time, it's like, hey, I'm behind you 110%. Whatever you need, how can I help? So
But that being said, it took you to step out one step to reach that kid and look at the influence you have. And that's when I'm working with the younger teachers, I used to call it a 1 minute rule. Like, that's not 1 minute, it's 30 seconds. How long does it take us? It takes us 30 seconds to take a kid out of class or keep them out of class to say something positive because maybe they go home and they get nothing. I always tell people that to the teachers, I said, if a teacher took you out of fourth grade and said, hey, I really liked your essay or whatever, I go, when would you forget that? And they go, never. I said, look at that. We could do that. So we're trying to guide the young teachers to take that extra step. And as a coach, like I said, I get frustrated with those. I will work with the little leagues when they allow little Billy, who's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, play the whole game. And, so there's a lot of, like I said, being part of this community, we're able to reach out to the younger coaches because I've done this a long time. And people always ask me, how do you last this long? And I'm like, well, if I'm going to put the emphasis on my win-loss record for the happiness of my life, I'm not in it for the right thing. And if you're doing it the so-called right way, the rewards are endless, especially when you're in this town like San Pedro, where it's kind of a tight knit community. And of course, he's not going to be, someone, oh, my son didn't play, or he got cut, and things like that. And we coaches are not perfect. But at the end of the day, we're working hard to do our best and improve from our own mistakes too.
exactly. You talked about former players coming back. How much does that mean to you for them to come back and talk about experiences that they had and the memories that they have and not necessarily winning and losing?
It's pretty empowering when you listen to the kids because I was fortunate. We had at my last school, Pacific Hills, we won 5 CIFs. At San Pedro, we won 2. We won a state. Those are all awesome, great things, and I'm really proud of that. But whenever the kids come back, my wife had this surprise 50th birthday party for me a few years ago. Uh, all the kids, she invited all these kids, and it was incredible that all these kids came back. Not one of them talked about any championships, none, zero. Right. And then I could take a step back when I'm guiding the younger coaches to say, look, we want to win so bad. It's like we're missing it. We're missing because winning and losing is going to happen. Yeah, if you do it in my opinion, the right way and develop it, kids will come to your school, should be coming to your school, and you're finding out what kind of coach you are if you could develop the players you have. And like I said, sometimes it might be, hey, a 500 record. If we really work hard and we get to 500, that's a successful year. That could happen. Now, so like I said, for all these players, even recently, they're coming back, and I always have them talk to the players, the present players, and again, they talk about something they learned that they transfer that into, "Hey, we learned the basketball 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Now I run my own business or with my family. I understand this better." So there is the lessons within the game that is the most rewarding because when you see these players come back with their families and they're all proud of that they're part of something, that makes you feel really good because, you made a difference. And then I've had kids actually that didn't go well, and they didn't understand why, maybe they got cut or they didn't, and they'll come back and years later and say, hey, I understand. I mean, they'll say, I understand, or I apologize because my attitude or whatever. So usually with time, you know, and then there's times that I might go to a kid and say, you know what, I should have done a better job with you because there's times I fell. So we try to teach by example too, because I'll tell my kids when I did a poor job coaching too, if I didn't prep them properly, that's on me, and a lot of times kids aren't able to take responsibilities. We all have to take responsibility and I try my best.
Episode 88 is brought to you by Barber to You. As you can tell, I'm going to get cleaned up soon. Lopez is the man. Coach, I don't tell a lot of people this, and this is, part of how my episodes work. So I lost my mom when I was in high school and reached out to my freshman football coach, who is the alumni director at Bishop Montgomery. And I said, hey, somebody recently lost their mom. How did you how did you navigate that with me? And he goes, in all honesty, it's not easy because having never been in that position, you don't know what these kids' needs are. You want them to be a kid. You want them to grow, but at the same time, you know that they have to be held accountable regardless of what just happened in their life. And so, has there been a situation like that for you where extenuating circumstances, a parent has passed, things have happened in a child's life where you've not necessarily experienced that yourself, but you've had to find a way where how can I help or what can I do to assist, whether it's not being a basketball coach, but it's being a human being.
Rich Makoff, who got me one of my first jobs at Pacific Hills, he said, you're always planting seeds. And that's really, really been a big part of it because the first part before you plant the seeds is we have to get to know the story of a young man or young lady. And my apologies that you lost your mom. I can't personally relate to that. But if we're listening, like I've said before, if we're listening to the kids and finding out their story, sometimes it makes a lot of sense why they might be acting up. You know, my first child was a foster kid from San Pedro High School. And it was really sad because he wanted to get back with the parents and he was angry and he didn't trust anybody. Um, he was responding to the coaching staff. And this is my first year here. I was married a year. And my wife's like, well, let's keep working with him. He was working and he wasn't our foster child at the time. And then it was time to take him to another group home. And my wife's like, no, we can't let him go. Robert's gone too far. His grades come up. He's responding. So my wife's like, we'll become foster parents. So with his background, all his mom and parents have to do is go to some certain classes and they wouldn't do it. They lived a mile from us and they wouldn't do it. So I can't even imagine a parent in that situation. And then there's another step to that because we don't know the parent situation. Like maybe they're going through some emotional problems where they can't take those proper classes. So you can't just judge the parent. But like I said, for a child of 17, 16 to not have a parent stepping up to be the parent, it's hard. So like I said, I learned, like I said, right out of the bat, right out of the shoot that we have to take care of these young men. And like I said, in this situation, this young man finally graduated. Things went well. He still thanks us to the day. He was, like I said, that was our first child. It was a foster child. And if I didn't get to know his backstory and then he didn't get to know me, we wouldn't have developed this bond. So we developed a bond to where he eventually trusted us and we were able to guide him and things went well. So we kind of look at every single student, and not that we're going to bring every student into our house, but we've brought in over the course of years, probably 5 or 6. And so my wife, Annie's amazing. She's a teacher at Taper. She was a college athlete herself. So another answer to how I do this for so long is have a wife that understands. And she's actually a coach. She was one of the Little League coach, all-star coach and all this around town. So she's been nothing but a godsend when it comes to couldn't ask for a better partner. And even in the Washington game, she impressed me after all these years because she meets with the team at least once or twice a year, cooks for them at dinners, and she'll meet with the team. And she says, "Hey, I've been with coach for all these championships and I know what it takes and you guys have what it takes, or this is the area I have to improve on." So she won up me the other day because Washington, the game's running down and stuff. And then we end up winning. But one of my players left the bench too early and they didn't call a technical or anything. And it was, like I said, my wife, she has the green light to go tap a kid on the shoulder if they're not focused on the bench, and they know that. But she's also developed a relationship with the kids. Like, she's cooking for them so often during the year, and she gets to know them on a personal level and gives them rides or whatever they need. She knows what it's supposed to look like on the bench, right? That's her big thing. She does actually know some X and O's. She could guide them on that, but that's not her focus. And after the Washington game, it was a tight game, came down to the um, very last second. So, it ended up AJ hits a free throw. We're up 4, right? And then they're dribbling down court. And one of my players goes to celebrate a little early. So they didn't call it, but they could have called the technical shots, blah, blah, blah. She tells me that night at dinner, and I never would have thought it. I didn't do this. She was a step ahead of me. She said she went up when there was like 3 seconds left. She went up and down the bench twice. And she said, "Don't leave till the buzzer goes off. Don't leave until the buzzer goes off." So that's a step ahead that I wasn't even thinking about. So Annie, great job. And like I said, she's been part of this for years. And I respect her patience as, the wife of a coach is not the easiest thing. But because of her background, she at least understands it because her family's and her brother's a coach and her dad's been a coach. A lot of times she, as a wife of a coach, has met with the wives of the parents of the coaches to explain what we're going through. And sometimes she'll say, "Hey, they need their space," and then this is the time to intervene because it's not easy to be, the wife of a coach because we go through ups and downs and, tough loss and film sessions and beatings. And so we're not home a lot. So it's a tough act, but I've been fortunate, very fortunate.
Is there a requested meal from the team when she makes team meals?
Requested meal. We kind of like are going to do carb loading. So it's like even tonight, and it's usually pasta and chicken and then some type of a dessert. So there's not, and then sometimes we'll do a bet. Hey, if you win this, you're going to get steak. So, but it has to be after a championship. Then it's happened before where we have to come up with steak. So sometimes it's, a kid will get a special meal if they take 2 charges in the game or 3 charges in the game. So, but pretty much pasta.
So what you're telling me is the meatballs that I'm making now for my kids, I'm gonna have to make even more when they hit high school?
Yep. You reward good behavior because
Right.
and one of the things we do is sometimes parents reward bad behavior. You reward that good behavior. So if they earned it, give it to them.
You just received word that you were awarded the California Coaches Association State Coach of the Year. What does that mean to you?
Hasn't hit me yet. I'm so focused on I actually I was very humbled and fortunate to win this award. I received the email like 2 days ago, but it hasn't even sunk it in and nobody's even said anything. And we're like locked in on our next game. So in time, the first thing that comes to my mind is the coaches staff that I have with me has been amazing. Like I said, I've had so many great coaches I've coached with for years. And I never call them assistant coaches because we work together. So it goes to all of the group of coaches. And like I said, I haven't digested that at all. So I do thank whoever voted for me. I appreciate that. This is how small San Pedro is. The gentleman who's the president, Roger Cosgrove of the coaches association. I happened to be a local eatery, and I saw him, and I just said, "Hey, have a seat," because he was all by himself. So he had a seat next to me and my brother, and he goes, "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but," that's when I found out. So good people in town.
I sat down with Corey Kitani, who is brand new at Carson. And last year I sat down with Kumasi Demesma over at Narbonne. And I would have loved to have sat down with Coach Ernie over at Gardena. But this is a twofold question. How tough are those Marine League games night in, night out? And how fun is it to coach against guys that either you saw play or you know their story?
Masa over at um, Narbonne actually beat us on a buzzer beater in 2011, I think it was, or 2010. So that's where we start, but in a respectful way. He's we've had some really good conversations, and sometimes he'll, ask me my thoughts, but I think he's doing a great job and competitive games all the time. And like I said, he's the right guy for the job there. And Coach Gattani over at Carson, of course, they'll talk about Uncle, but now I'm going to talk about him because he's solid. He's really good. He has a great connection with his players, and you know, bright young coach, and he's already I watched his interview, and it's all about developing those relationships and fundamentals. So within our league, and prayers for Ernie Carr, because I know he's sick, and hopefully he's all right, but prayers out for him from the community. So within the Marine League, it's been a battle day in and day out, and it really doesn't matter who you're playing because like Coach Katani said, anybody could beat anybody on any given day. We never take any team lightly because it's happened over and over where there's been upsets. And part of that has to do with we get to know each other so well. Just like in that championship game, Narbonne knew everything about us, and we knew everything about Narbonne. So that's why it was a tough battle. So it makes it really fun to coach because you have to get ready. You have to get ready every game, and that prepares you for playoffs. Because if you're in a league that the coaches aren't solid and the players aren't solid, then you're not prepared. But our league definitely prepares us for the playoff run. And this year we have two teams in the open, which is, respect for the Green League.
That's going to cut the serious part of this interview. We're going to transfer into my favorite segment, not necessarily because it's allowing me to get away from serious questions, but allows me to know you on a different level. Who are your top three basketball players ever?
Top three basketball players. The first one that comes to mind is Magic Johnson because he made everybody around him better. It didn't matter if he scored 2 or 20 points. And that's what I try to get our players to emphasize. The second one, CP3, I just love the way he played because he's set up a table, set the game, and it was like he took over down the stretch, but he was setting it up through the whole game. So I try to teach my players, my point guards, how to get everybody involved. And then as things spread out, he used to take over. So he's my second one. And my third one, AJ Bobich. I have to say that. Sorry. You guys, my sons. Nah, AJ, top three.
If you could have a meal with anybody, live or dead, who would it be?
Can I eat with two people?
Sure.
Okay. Jesus Christ. That would just be incredible to go back and just see how he lived. And it would be incredible. That's all I could say. And then athlete Lou Gehrig. When I was fourth, fifth grade, I read books on Lou Gehrig and just the trials he went through in life. I mean, he was an amazing athlete. Played 2,630 straight games of baseball.
21,030.
2,130, right?
213.
Yeah, 20,000. 2,000. Anyway, so I read a lot about him, and then to go through the tragic challenges before he passed at 37.
Young.
Yeah,
Very
I
young.
think it was 37. That just makes you understand how fragile life is, to be a big, strong, great athlete and then to like be met with this challenge. And then, like I said, unfortunately in life, we have challenges arise. So one of our biggest teachings here at San Pedro is you're going to go through challenges. It could be health. It could be losing a job. So Lou Gehrig was my idol. And I said, if I ever sat down and talked to him, that would be really interesting.
I listened to a podcast where they were talking about Lou Gehrig and the connection between concussions and ALS. And it started to become more. I know this isn't part of this. This isn't part of that, but I read books on Lou Gehrig, and he was, the Iron Horse was probably one of those guys, only son of immigrants who were trying to make a name for themselves, working at Columbia. The reason that he went to Columbia was because his parents worked there. His story, just everything about Lou Gehrig, and then watching part of the Yankees was something that while I knew the story, I wanted to see how Hollywood did it. and how it worked. And while reading is different because picking up a book is completely, it's like a lost art.
Right.
It was something for me that I challenged myself. I had a coworker challenge me, and I think I read 14 books in 12 months. It was a lot of fun, but I agree. Top two basketball movies, if you even have time for basketball
Definitely,
movies. Sports
I'm
movies.
aging myself as Hoosiers, right? Because it was again one of those movies with a major challenge and discipline, and when you look at that, there's a message behind it, and I think it's a good message for coaches with what we try to live by. It's like discipline. They were playing just their hometown kids, and they were the underdogs, and that's a lot of times that's how I feel. Is that's what we're about because we're not bringing kids in from wherever, and our kids are from Pedro, so we have definitely most of them are considered the underdog. So that's one. And you guided me over to Pride of the Yankees as a sports movie. So that's from the 30s or 40s, whatever it's from. But that's probably my second one.
All right. A movie is being made about your life. Who plays John Bobich?
I've been told I look like Dana Carvey, so that I'm fully studied comedian. So
Oh,
so that'd be I have this goofy side, big time goofy side of me, I promise you. And I'm gonna say Dana Carvey, just because I've been called that. But I studied him and I think he's like hilarious.
have you seen his HBO stand up where he's talking about chopping broccoli?
Yeah, oh yeah. I saw that. That's from his that's from his
H-
interview for Saturday Night Live,
uh-huh.
So he's the amount of characters he could do is just like amazing. So my son, AJ, has some characters and he's a quiet guy, but he comes out with certain characters that blows your mind away. So that's my guy.
I'm gonna have to find it. Dana Carvey right next to you. All right, your go-to South Bay eatery, which is now San Pedro. Your go-to San Pedro eatery and your favorite dish there.
I get in trouble for answering this because as I bounce around the community, my big joke used to be when my wife and I were married and it was basketball season. Like, we used to guess what we made for dinner last night? I was like reservations. So we were hitting all the eateries, and I get to know all those people really well. So there's so many incredible eateries in town. So I'm going to be politically correct here, and because there's about 10 of them. But I don't know if that's the exact one, but one of the ones I go to lately just for health reasons is Crazy Fish. And I've never even liked fish, but I found out that salmon was good for you, and they have crazy good salmon tacos. And that's probably the one I eat it the most. And like I said, mainly for health reasons, but because it's good stuff and it tastes good. But there's so many. Mona at the Waffle Shop, Serrano's that used to be our big place for team meals. We ate a sandwich for our pregame meal the other day, and like I said, this is when I get caught up because there's so many awesome places in town. Raffaello's is one of my go tos. We ate a coaching meeting last night. We ate at Think. Like I said, I go out to eat a lot, so I could go on and on. So I'll stop right there.
There we go, Coach Rana. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a
Appreciate
lot.
you
Great job.
very much.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun.